Hisuian Zoroark is a run that I've been wanting to do for years. It's the only normal ghost type Pokemon ever made, and several people have hyped it up, whether it be the Pokemon itself or just the typing. But today I'm here to answer one simple question. How overpowered would Hisuian Zoroark be in Generation 1? Welcome back to the How Overpowered series, where the goal is to see how future Pokemon with new moves, modern typings, to see how they stack up against the strongest version of a Pokemon ever, which is Generation 1 Mewtwo. We've done over 40 runs, only 5 of them have managed to reach that point, and if you're new here, the point of this series isn't to reimagine how a newer Pokemon would fit within the confines of Generation 1 with bad move pools or whatever the case may be. It's to see whether power creep actually makes them overpowered, or if they're going to fall short of that extremely high bar that Mewtwo has set. Now you can also check below in the description if you want to know the rules of the run, how all this works, but I think we should just dive in. To get us all on the same page, let me talk about the identity of Hisuian Zoroark. This is a glass cannon, fast, solid attack, has an even better special stat, but its HP and defense, they're not good. In a solo run format, this is essentially exactly kind of what you want to see, and it's why runs like Alakazam or Gengar are so high up on the vanilla tier list. And as much as I love bulky Pokemon, survivability and durability, they just don't translate to beating the game fast, which is the ultimate goal here. Something else I rarely touch on, and I probably should, is base stat total. Since we use the, what I like to call the Chansey rule, where we take the highest special stat in these runs, Zoroark's 450 stat total would put it in that upper echelon of Gen 1 Pokemon, tied for 10th place with Pokemon like Lapras and Tauros. Now if you notice on this list, 12 of the 13 highest base stat Pokemon are balanced by being in the slow level up group, with the exception of Mew, which does have that medium slow growth rate, which is basically the best growth rate as far as I'm concerned. I know the names are kind of confusing, it is what it is. What I'm trying to say here is that Zoroark is also in the medium slow level up group, which already sets really high expectations, but let's leave that number analysis behind for now. The early game is how things generally tend to be in really good runs. It's going to be the bare minimum, and after the one mandatory bug catcher, I have my eyes set on the rock solid Pokemon trainer. I haven't talked about the moves yet, but high crit moves in Generation 1 will always crit if your Pokemon has a base speed of at least 64, and we clear that. Shadow Claw is a ghost version of Slash, and I do include the Generation 1 crit damage formula, the accuracy, and the stab bonuses, all in the effective power that you'll see in the bottom left on the overlay, so you'll always see how these high crit moves are scaling throughout the game. Now all of this is to say that Shadow Claw is a very good move in most situations, but against Brock, his Pokemon have very high defense, and me being a lower level just kind of rushing here means that it will be a 4-shot on each of his Pokemon, and that's basically the battle. You might think that picking up an extra battle before this might make a difference, but I think you would essentially be trading more time and more overall turns just to make this 8-turn battle become 4 turns, if that makes any sense. But that's the first badge down. Let's go to some other things. I've done some other runs on the channel, mainly Giratina, where I really wanted to use an early Shadow Claw. It's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. The problem with that specific run is that you don't really have a solid way to deal with normal types, and if you didn't know, there's at least like 67 mandatory normal types from here all the way to the mid game. This means that any advantage that you would have from having a powerful, guaranteed crit move early is just nullified because there's so many situations where there's normal types and they're just straight up immune to Ghost. To finally open up a discussion about the moves, let's kind of start by looking at the Legends Arceus Learn set. I would have used the Learn column here for the levels, but you would get an early Shadow Sneak, which is like a Ghost quick attack, and then you would get an early Swift to deal with those pesky normal types, but the real draw of this Learn set that's not going to be relevant in the video till way later would be a level 43 Nasty Plot that you would presumably carry to the end of the game. If you didn't know, Nasty Plot is basically just Amnesia. There is also a signature move called Bitter Malice, and I do want to talk about it, but we'll hold off just for a little bit, and let's talk about the direction I actually went for this video. Here's the Generation 9 Learn set that I just found to be better. Shadow Claw as an evolution move is exactly the reason I wanted to run this Pokemon, but moves like U-Turn allows you to handle pretty much everything that's immune to Ghost. And just to quickly touch on U-turn, it's a basic 70 base power bug move here. Now we all know U-turn and the switch mechanics and how it had a profound effect on competitive Pokemon, but I see no reason to complicate things too much in this Generation 1 run, but I did want to touch on it before someone comments about it. Now the drawback of this Generation 9 set is the extremely late nasty plot, which means that even if you wanted to go that special route, you would just get the move too late for it to be meaningful at all. You would basically only be using it for like 4 or 5 battles. Now what we are left with is basically the tandem of Shadow Claw and U-turn to carry you for the majority of the run, and you do get some eventual options like Foul Play, Psychic, and that late Amnesia if you want to go for that special set. It's also worth noting that Zoroark is a balanced attacker, Ghost is a physical typing in Generation 1, and you also have access to things like Swords Dance, Dig, Body Slam, so you do have some flexibility overall in the learn set. In Mount Moon, I make perhaps the only controversial decision in the run. I'm going to grab Mega Punch. Now I'm going to talk about this probably way too much, but since we simulate speedrun manipulations for no Mount Moon encounters, it really does not take that long to get, and just like a run like Alakazam, you will save more time in the long run if you just sat down and look at the numbers. I would call this very much subtraction by addition, and I really do feel the need to touch on this because I've watched other runs as recently as last week where Mega Punch was passed up because of that silly stigma in the community that non-100% accurate moves are not always worth it, but I'm going to let the results speak for themselves. The first thing that Mega Punch does is it makes you just drown in PP. You have so much PP that you can just skip the initial heal when you arrive in Cerulean. You can go straight to Misty, and I don't even have to do a video transition here because I fixed the psychic interaction with Ghost, which means that Shadow Claw is going to slurp up Misty stars, and that's going to get us a huge chunk of experience. And with that out of the way, let me glaze Zoroark a little more. Skipping candies is an extremely common thing. Out of the 12 available rare candies, most runs are going to skip 2 at minimum, and the better the run, the more candies you pass up. Being an extremely good Pokemon in the medium slow level up group means that I can actually skip the Cerulean candy, which is something you pretty much never see in these runs. But if you are a fan of Mega Punch, hey brother, buckle in because we're about to talk about it a lot. When you optimize a run, generally you start to take risk and you reach a few points to where you're comfortable just resetting until maybe you'll get the desired results that you want, such as the essence of speedrunning. Pidgeotto and several other Pokemon are a problem area because they are immune to Shadow Claw and the flying typing resist bugs, so U-turn's not great either. That leaves us with Scratch, and in this specific scenario there's only a 38% chance that Scratch will two-shot. Here I wanted the Mega Punch crit, but it's worth noting, and we'll see throughout the video, that even if I didn't get the Mega Punch crit here, I would still play this one out until at least Vermilion City, because there's several points of variance that you could actually just lose the time, make the crit wouldn't even matter anymore, you would just lose the time that you save. So even though we get the crit here, it doesn't mean that everything's going to be perfect, if that makes sense. Now it's time for Nugget Bridge, and I'm not sure if any of you know this, but you can find the single highest cluster of mandatory battles in the entire game right here. There are going to be 3 more specific instances of normal flying Pokemon. I don't know why I don't just say Pidgey. And the first 2 will take you at least 2 turns if you were just going the Scratch route. And not even the last Pidgey is a guaranteed one-shot, but it does have better ranges. I would also like to take a quick second to say that if you've been enjoying this run, hey, consider becoming a member or a patron. You'll get access to patch files for runs just like this, and it really helps the channel going. Back to the run. Just like saving a heal before fighting Misty, the PP reserves is kind of just the gift that keeps on giving, because once again when I'm done with Bill, I'm able to skip yet another heal to save even more time. Now the last piece of this gauntlet is going to be the 4 normal flying Pokemon that guard the entrance to Vermilion City, and we often bring up the triple Pidgey Junior Trainer. She's very annoying, and even with the extra levels from being in the medium slow level up group, Scratch is still only a 68% one-shot range. That means that on average, just your average attempt, you're gonna fail to knock out probably one of these little birds. And I don't even want to talk about the failed runs where maybe you get sand attacked early and you start to go on a downward spiral, questioning everything in your entire life. but it's just another area where Mega Punch just feels good and it just kind of smooths things out. Saves you a couple of extra turns here and there. And if you're keeping track up to this point, the drawbacks of getting Mega Punch is physically spending like 30 seconds of game time walking to it and learning it, while the advantages are immense. You have that much larger PP reserve, it lets you skip 2 heals outright, and the ranges can let you save up to 6 turns during a section where Scratch just doesn't get the job done. Now to me, this is like trading a $5 bill for a $10 bill. Why would you not do it? There's no drawbacks. And I'm not even done talking about Mega Punch yet, but I do have to take a really quick break to kind of let it down softly. Mega Punch, don't listen to what I'm about to say. I'm gonna get Body Slam, don't tell Mega Punch. The final moves of this run just really appreciate the accuracy and the extra power from Body Slam, and I cannot in good consciousness skip it on a normal type Pokemon that will primarily be using physical moves. But forget this for now, let's go back to more Mega Punch talk. Now notice I have not learned Body Slam. Even going into the rival battle, I still have Mega Punch. I also have access to Dig, and I'm holding off on both of them because if I just keep pressing on with Mega Punch, depleting its PP, it's going to allow me to skip another heal. And it's not like you're really even sacrificing anything. Now I haven't said it, and I feel like this doesn't even need to be said, but I think some people out there need to be reminded that Mega Punch is an 80 base power move that you can get immediately right after Brock, and it gets Stab in this run. It hits harder in this specific case than Earthquake in neutral situations. All I'm saying, give it a shot. Sometimes it's a little easy to be stubborn, I know personally. Very easy to do what you've always done. But hey, live a little, try something new, Mega Punch a couple of things. As for Surge, I don't even need to learn Dig here just yet. Shadow Claw just clears this fight pretty easy. I even outspeed the Raichu, so you already know there's really no way to lose this one. I actually use Mega Punch for the first 2 Pokemon just to get that much more out of my PP. Everything's looking nice. I mentioned it just a few seconds ago, but I will skip the heal after this, but that's gonna be 3 badges down. Before we get to that sweet split data, we do have a huge move pool shift consisting of the 2 moves I just talked about. This basically allows me just to never heal during this early game, and just in case it wasn't obvious, Mega Punch is being replaced with Body Slam, and I'm gonna learn Dig. On the initial learn set, I never even mentioned Meditate in this entire video so far, but the TLDR here is that boosting moves are really good, we know that. But if you are using boosting moves early in the game, you're probably just losing a lot of time. We're not gonna need a boosting move until way later in the game. There's better options, so I just got rid of Meditate early if you're wondering. Now let's finally look at that split data, and we can see a pretty solid sight. We are over a minute ahead of Mewtwo's pace, which isn't too uncommon as we do more and more of these runs. I would say this juncture in the split data isn't a barometer of success, but it just means that we're on pace at the very least. I am tired of mentioning this, but the Misty split discrepancy, you know already, Mewtwo does Nugget Bridge first. Hopefully I won't have to say this for very much longer because I am going to redo Mewtwo by the end of the year. I'm gonna try really hard to change up the Misty split for that run, but I digress. The whole point is that things are looking pretty solid. Now I would finally like to talk about a couple of things. I led the video talking about the normal ghost typing, and I would like to give some quick thoughts before I'd fall into a ramble here. My quick thoughts are, it's pretty good. I do think the ghost typing does the heavy lifting in terms of the defensive capabilities, especially in a solo run. Normal stab is really nice, but I think it's cool how the types bounce off of each other. Normal being immune to ghost, but weak to fighting. Ghost being immune to fighting, but weak to ghost moves gives you like this weird inverse yin and yang type feel. I think it's a very intriguing typing, but, and there's a big but here, my friends, the problem in a solo running setting for these types of videos is that no one really cares about normal fighting weakness. No one cares about fighting damage, and there's really no ghost move, so you don't really care about the ghost weakness either. And I guess there's maybe that 1% chance that Bruno just kind of pops off on you, but usually it doesn't happen. And I think just to sum it all up before I go too far is that normal ghost typing sounds incredible and top tier if this were competitive, RBY competitive. But I can't say that it was the best part about this Pokemon in a PvE solo run type situation here. I think that the growth rate, the high offensive stats, and the move pool is what makes this run pretty good. The typing to me was just kind of icing on the cake. It wasn't the main focal point. Skipping ahead to Cerulean, we can rapid fire a few short sections real quick because literally nothing happens. The shop buy has nothing going on, there's no vitamins or anything extra at all, no TMs. The Rocket Hideout is nothing more than a quick trot through to the end. And like a lot of runs, Pokemon Tower and the Rivals specifically is merely a speed bump on our way to picking up that Pokeflute. After that, I am going to go down to the Safari Zone, but Hisuian Zoroark does something that is pretty rare, just kind of like the Cerulean candy, and that is skipping the fairly easy candy on Cycling Road. It's hidden, but it's directly on your main path. Honestly, it doesn't take that long to get, but we're at the point in this run where you're just cutting out so many candies that this one eventually just comes on the chopping block. You can also save a super repel here, but just muscle memory was too much for me. You'll notice in the top left that I do have the repel going. I just couldn't help myself from using one before the Snorlax. Now we're in Silph Co, and just like every good run, this is a pivotal moment to get out of the way immediately, just to have a very clean rest of the run. There is one extra thing to do here, and that's to get Swords Dance. Now remember, I talked about this a lot. It is definitely faster if you need Earthquake to grab it after you defeat Giovanni and all the rockets leave the building. You can go get Earthquake and Swords Dance after. It's a little bit faster, but if you only need Swords Dance, I think that way is actually a little bit slower. You don't have to actually fight anything to get Swords Dance, and overall it's a very, very minor thing, very minor detail, but I think the details is what makes up the run, what makes everything interesting. Now what's key here is I'm not going to learn Swords Dance just yet. I'm going to hold off for a while, but now we can focus our attention on rival number 5. I think most times that I do this fight, I say the same thing. I can describe this fight as just being fine. It's okay. Not great, you're not gonna one-shot everything, but it's not bad. I did take a pretty big risk here by not healing on a Glass Cannon Pokemon, and I'm almost immediately punished. Now just for context, I have a 98.1% chance to two-shot the bird at level 35, so I was very confident at first, but guys, even if you reset a run and save some turns early until you Mega Punch crit, remember you can always get like a 1 out of 50 chance to miss a range, and you can almost invalidate the entire run just due to bad luck. Now I don't want to be too dramatic because at the end of the day it only cost me a single turn, but taking that much damage in the fight overall, it does make the run significantly harder as time goes on. It injects more risk into the run, but for now we do survive and we can celebrate a pretty tight victory. With our bags full, we can finally go on the patented gym leader blitz. But first, I do make another mistake. I don't know what happened here, it started getting to my head. I go to Sabrina before I go to Erika. So my mistakes and bad luck are just starting to compound here. I'm already at low health, but glass half full, there's only one risk in this fight. Alakazam will get a move because I do not outspeed it. Luckily, Psybeam is the only thing that could knock us out realistically. Sidewave is one of the worst moves in the game, and it also has Recover or Reflect, which wouldn't do anything to stop that big beefy Shadow Claw coming down. So even though there was a chance for the run just to be over right here, I stood my ground and we come out on top to get another badge, even though it was kind of out of order. Probably the earliest Sabrina I ever fought, to be honest with you. Making my way towards Erika, I want to talk about move choices for the run because it seems like sometimes a no-brainer to use Swords Dance immediately. Hey, Swords Dance plus attack, set it up, destroy everything, but nobody cares about just destroying everything. It's all about speed, it's all about the time. And setup moves will bleed you dry the earlier you use them. That's why I never used Meditate early in the game. That's why I got rid of it early. Now the second reason, and the more important reason to me to not learn Swords Dance yet, is that U-turn has a ton of mileage left before I can replace it. Why have a wasted slot on Swords Dance at this point when there's so much things that are weak to bug during this specific part of the game? For example, the Execute Beauty that you just seen, double weak to bug. 2 of Erika's 3 Pokemon are grass poison type, hey, double weak to bug. It makes things very simple. And if there's 2 things, maybe 3 things that I like about the Overpowered series, I love seeing what good ghost moves can do, good bug moves, good dragon moves, because they're virtually non-existent in Generation 1, and it's really cool to see them in action and how they would interact with the vanilla game. Moving on to Fuchsia, Bug is just a gift that keeps on giving. Now, sure, you might be saying, hey, Shadow Claw would do more damage, but you're thinking about things the wrong way, little Timmy. It's a PP world that we live in, and we're just trying to save the most PP over the course of the run while saving the most turns possible. Turn economy, learn a thing or two about it. Now, as for Koga, the ranges aren't that great here, all things considered. You have like a decent U-turn range in the Coughings. Dig is more consistent, but it costs more time, so there's like a little balance there, and it's highly unlikely that anything's gonna OHKO the Muck or the Weezing, but it's a fine fight. There's no danger here. I do go for U-turn on the first Coughing, but I know that I got a little bit lucky by getting the one shot, so I swap it to Dig for the second one, and at the very end I do get that classic self-destruct Weezing just to make it as fast as possible, and that's gonna cap off this little mini blitz section of a few gyms. Now let's finish up talking about candies, and the Warden candy locked behind Strength. I think it's one of the candies that you'll skip the most when you start cutting out more than the normal amount of candies, if that makes any sense. Like if you're already cutting out 3 or 4 candies anyway, this is usually the next one on the list. But as I finally teach Swords Dance and I get my Lapras loaded to the gills with various HMs, it is gonna be time for that swift swim down to Cinnabar. Everything's looking good, the sun's shining. And inside of Pokemon Mansion, I will grab the final 2 candies here. And if you watched a bunch of videos, I'll often mess around with the candies that I actually skip. Sometimes these get cut, but if you're keeping count at home, this means that overall, Zoroark is only going to get 4 out of the 12 rare candies. I do believe this is the lowest rare candy count I've ever done in a run personally, and I'm still not even fully convinced that it needs 4. Outside of that, I recently did a 3 Pokemon Vanilla Ghost video that underperformed very hard despite me having such naive high expectations, I should say. But the whole point here is I'm going to use the same bit for this video. Something about Ghost, Tombstones. I think you get what I'm trying to say here.
Tombstoner, brother.
With about 10 battles left in the run, it's finally time to start setting up on a few of them. Now this is mainly for the Arcanine ranges, but just like several times in this video, I make a very slight whoopsie here, and that's okay. I'm not grinding these runs for a few weeks to get perfect runs, so take this for what you will. The mistake here is that I fat finger body slam, and that's gonna let the Arcanine survive, and that could have potentially opened me up for like a Fire Blast, but I'm fine missing a turn, and if you aren't, I think you should get a grip. Now this channel has not gotten to the point now where people are like pointing out arbitrary points of the run where I could have saved like a turn here or there, but you never know. It starts off by people pointing out that I should never play as Brendan in Pokemon Emerald because May saves 15 seconds. It starts there, and the next thing you know, it's the gateway drug to micromanaging every single battle and every run that I do. So what am I talking about? I don't know. Moving on to Giovanni, I make a mistake kind of in the same vein as Blaine. I know I'm making a lot of mistakes, but it's worth pointing out that a mistake to me in this context means that I either put myself at a risk unnecessarily or that maybe I lost a turn on accident. Not that big of a deal. Not a mistake like, oh no, I need to redo the whole entire run. Because if you look at a video like Mega Rayquaza, I felt the need to redo the entire run there because I did make a few very costly mistakes that greatly impacted the overall time, but I do firmly stand behind the results of this one because I think personally the day that I'm redoing runs because I lost like 4 turns is the day that I'm probably taking the channel a little bit too seriously, and I need to remind myself that this is just a hobby. Now tangents aside, I don't want to get too existential on you guys. I do set up in this battle basically to get body slam ranges on the middle Pokemon and to have a 78% one-shot chance on the Rhydon, but I accidentally go for Shadow Claw. That's where I missed the turn. I think technically it's only half a turn, but it doesn't matter. I'm not going to stress about it. I don't think you guys should stress about it. And really quickly before we get out of this battle, I did use 4 rare candies after Blaine. I almost forgot to mention it, but I used all 4 of those candies for this battle, and that's going to be 8 badges down. Jumping directly into rival number 6, there's not much to say here. I do know that all I need is 2 Swords Dance, get to +4 on attack, And since I'm so fast and speedy and I got good stats, I know I can just one-shot sweep through the entire battle and I just don't have to stress anything. Why am I saying the word stress so much? I don't know. Just like rival number 5, I felt pretty confident not healing here. And this fight was just a bump in the road. Now let's slow things down and let's talk about a couple of things. First up is split data, and there is something that will probably change that I forgot to change. I don't know how close you guys watch the videos, but in the vanilla Dragonite video, I mentioned that I stopped depositing my Pokemon and that it saved an average of 22 seconds per run, and I retroactively adjusted other runs. Now, the long and short of what I'm trying to say here is that my split data software that I made did not account for that 22 seconds. So this is slightly off. So for the 4 people out there that it matters to, Mewtwo is actually a little bit faster than what is represented on this split data right here. Now, what I'm trying to say is that we had a minute lead at Lieutenant Surge, and if you were counting those 22 seconds, it looks like Zoroark would be about 7 seconds ahead about the Elite Four time start. As it stands now on my official split data software, it's a 29-second lead going into the Elite Four, so that's pretty good. This run definitely has a shot of beating Mewtwo at this point. I don't want to spoil anything. It's going to be very tight. It's going to be very close. But there is one last thing that I want to talk about, and it's perhaps to me the most interesting thing about this Pokemon. I don't know why I saved it to the very end of the video to talk about it, but that's kind of what happens when you don't really use a script. I want to talk about Hisuian Zoroark's signature move, Bitter Malice, and its absence in this run right here. Now, in Legends Arceus, this move is pretty nutty. It's only got 60 base power. It's a ghost move, by the way, and it has a 30% chance to induce the Frostbite condition. Frostbite is something that we don't have in the main games, but essentially think of it as the special version of Burn. Whereas Burn does damage to you every turn and it halves your attack stat, Frostbite would do damage to you every turn and half your special attack, which is crazy. It's really good on paper. And on top of that, if the opponent has a status condition on them, like Frostbite, the power of this move is doubled. So in a vacuum, this move sounds really powerful, but at the same time, it would require me to make an entirely new effect to get everything to work right. There's a lot going on with this move, and it's not that I couldn't do it, it's just a lot of work for a one-off run when I would probably rather just use Shadow Claw, because you can see on the overlay right now that Shadow Claw is almost at 200 effective power. Bitter Malice with Stab and a status effect on another Pokemon would only be 180 effective power. So it's a lot of work for something that's not even as strong as Shadow Claw would be in Generation 1. Now, it's worth noting, I want to keep talking about this move because it was completely reworked when it got into the main series games in Generation 9. They changed the base power to 75, they removed the power up if the target has a status condition part of it, and since Frostbite does not exist in the main series games, they changed that to a guaranteed attack lowering side effect. So essentially you use Bitter Malice, they get -1 attack, like a built-in growl, I guess you would say. So for me, it's a conundrum. How would I implement this move? Would I do a bunch of work? I'm not even using the Legends Arceus learn set, so it doesn't make sense to work this move like it existed in Legends Arceus when I'm using the Generation 9 set. And then when you look at the Generation 9 version of this move, it's not even that good. You could argue that maybe Shadow Ball is better. I find this move extremely interesting. That's why I'm spending time talking about it right now. I think Frostbite in general sounds incredible because if you didn't know, this game just catered, not even just this game, just Pokemon in general, just cater to special attackers so much. Whether it be I'm playing Generation 3 runs where there's so much Intimidates, but there's no special version of that. You know, Burn halves attack, but there's no special version, and they finally get a special version of the move, and they just kind of cut it out. You know what I mean? It's very weird. And the whole point I'm trying to say here, just to back everything up and just collect my thoughts before I go off the rails, I think Bitter Malice is an incredibly interesting move. I thought about it a lot, but once I started doing some testing, Shadow Claw's just better. It was the same thing for Giratina. I think Shadow Force is just a very, very cool sounding move, and it's a signature move of Giratina, but at the end of the day, Shadow Claw is just, it's so good. And that's all there is to say. Now guys, I'm not gonna ramble. Appreciate you sitting through that, but there's only one thing left to do. I think it's time to fade to black. And let's just take a look at the Elite Four. this is going to shock anybody, but this is going to be an incredibly fast and simple Elite Four. I don't really even have that much to say, but we'll do our best just to cover the high points. What's interesting about Lorelei is that this is going to be the only battle in the entire game where I have to fully set up Swords Dance and get to +6. This is one of those situations where if I had to say that Hisuian Zoroark had a weakness, it just doesn't have that much coverage. You kind of just like brute force your way through things, and that's what I'm going to start doing here. I have no Thunderbolt to speak of, no grass moves. Shadow Claw's pretty good, but Lorelei is infamous for her Pokemon being incredibly bulky, so it would take multiple turns to get through most of the stuff. So just setting up to, 600 plus attack with all your Swords Dance and just using that powerful stab body slam just to cut through everything, that was the solution here. You also get the chance, this is where you would finally learn Amnesia at the very end of this fight, and that's what I was talking about early in the video when I said you could go a special set, but you would only get to use it for 4 battles. That's what I was talking about right here. Shockingly enough, I do have some things to say about Bruno. I do actually want to set up here. I just don't really have anything great. Dig gives him the opportunity to use X-Defense or Hardens, which means that the Onix will survive an extra turn, so that's kind of annoying. You don't exactly have the best ranges just out of the box with Body Slam, so you need just a little bit of help, but +2 is not enough for the Machamp, but you don't really want to set up more because you're starting to waste turns. And what I'm trying to say here is that there was a little bit to think about overall. Just like most things, it's going to look pretty simple playing out, but this is one of those battles where you had to kind of like add up the turns and just say, hey, is it worth using Swords Dance at all? What should I be doing here? But it is what it is. We're also back to Hiker Anthony this week for what it's worth. I finally went back to the Pokemon Green sprites, but that's enough Bruno for this week. Agatha has pretty much one simple choice. I think we all know that Shadow Claw is going to completely and utterly destroy the Ghost, so there's no reason to worry about that. What I did worry about, and the reason why I do take a turn 1 risk and set up a single Swords Dance, is that Golbat and Arbok are not guaranteed. I don't really care about the Arbok. What's it gonna do? Spin on me? Who cares? It's the Golbat and specifically Confuse Ray costing turns, maybe Haze just getting rid of my badge boost. Things like that are kind of annoying. I think overall it's the same amount of turns. Like if you were to not set up Swords Dance and just go straight Shadow Claw and Body Slam, it would be the same. But this felt a little bit safer if you just survive the first turn from the Gengar. That's pretty much it. Not really anything too impactful going on in terms of decisions for this battle. I played Lance a little bit weird here. Now essentially you can set up, you get the Body Slam ranges and just kind of go all out. But what I found is that if you just go straight Shadow Claw, it's pretty much the same amount of turns, and that just kind of depends on if you see like any hyper potions or things of that nature. Now I don't heal here and I take another risk. At this point, and this is part of my psyche that I talk about sometimes in runs, is that if I make a few mistakes early, and we've talked about the mistakes that I made, I missed a couple of turns here and there, I'll start to take risk at the end of the run, because in my mind, if I can just save a little bit of time here and a little bit of time there, I can make up for a little bit of those mistakes and just kind of equalize the run. So that's why I'm just half health here. Essentially, I have a reset that I can play with. On these cross-gen runs, I don't care about the first reset. I don't count it against the Pokemon overall. So even if the Gyarados were to Hydro Pump me and cause a reset, I don't care, I would go back into it. Now, if I kept resetting, maybe I would redo the run. I don't know, it's hard to say, it didn't have to happen. But if you set up Swords Dance on this one, I think it's about the same turns as going straight Shadow Claw. I don't have the numbers for you guys right now, but I just go straight Shadow Claw, and that's gonna leave us with one battle left. Usually, even if the Elite Four is pretty simple, generally there's some stuff to say about the champion that's a little bit interesting. But here, I play it a little bit safe. I do heal to full. I used an elixir before the battle, so I'm just fully stocked up here. I need 2 Swords Dance, get to +4 attack. And the only way I would do something different is if maybe Pidgeot like mirror moved to Swords Dance and then charged up a Sky Attack. But even then, I don't think it would matter. He don't have enough turns to actually do significant damage to me. So just let him do whatever, set up, and from that point, you can do whatever. You can Shadow Claw or Body Slam the Alakazam. I go Body Slam because I'm already using Body Slam. I love Shadow Claw, but at the end of the day, I am trying to save some time. Now in the middle of the battle, you do have the 2 Pokemon that are weak to Dig. I go ahead and just use Dig because you don't really get a range with anything else. And finally, my favorite thing in the world. I love, if you just look down on the bottom left here, you see 402 effective power on this Executor with Shadow Claw. Don't care about setting up, just nuke this thing into the ground, banish this demon from whence it came, and then finally the +4, what's so important about it is the little thick turtle at the end, guaranteed one shot, get him out of there, and that is gonna end the run. Hisuian Zoroark finishes with a final time of 1 hour, 46 minutes, and 15 seconds, and sadly, that's going to leave it a little bit under that Mewtwo bar. So as good as this run was, it doesn't have those legendary stats, it doesn't have elite coverage, has a lot going for it, but it's still going to leave it with a 99.32 rating on its tier card. And if we bring up the tier list, good news for Hisuian Zoroark fans, it's actually in 9th place overall. Now 9th place is pretty good. Remember that you're competing with things like Mega Rayquaza, Mega Mewtwo Y, the complete freak show that is Kartana that completely breaks the game. So being 9th place in that context is pretty good, and I had a lot of fun with this run because this Pokemon's not legendary, it's not mythical, it just has the things that you're looking for in a solo run. I think the typing's really solid, I think it gets the right moves at the right time, and it has stats in the right locations. It reminds me a lot of other runs like Alola Ninetales, or even Gorochu, which is just kind of, I just made that up kind of, but it reminds me of those runs. They kind of, they punch way above their weight class, and I had a lot of fun doing this. Now, if you made it this far, you're a real one, comment that down below, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch my little video. It does mean a lot to me. Now, if you are a channel member or a patron, I can't thank you enough. It really motivates me to keep the channel going, and I'm going to try to push out one extra video in December. I don't even know when this one's going to release because the holidays are tricky. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but just like releasing stuff the day after Thanksgiving or releasing things like a day after Christmas, not good for views, and I want as many of you that want to watch this to be able to see it because I understand being busy as a father, as a husband, as somebody with a lot of family things to do. I know that watching Pokemon videos on the internet isn't the priority for most people, so I just want to make it as accessible as possible. Enough of that. We're winding down to the end of the year. Positive vibes only, guys. I hope you have a great end of the year, great holidays. Hope you get all the things that you want out of life, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.